Entrepreneurship, it's all game. The Big Potato Podcast is yours to claim. From startups to scaling up, we cover it all, so don't mess up. Monday nights, don't miss the show with Kendell and Stuart. Your time to grow, listen up, take notes and learn. The Big Potato Podcast, next gen's turn.
And welcome back to the Big Potato Podcast. That's right, you guys. We are back. Episode 10. Yep. We're back again. One more time. And it feels so good to be here as we empower entrepreneurs for today's business landscape. Remember, it's light-hearted discussion, delivering strategic business insights in industries such as entertainment, tech, sport, media, agriculture. We're talking about writing, creative industries. Boy, we're just packing them up right now on the Big Potato Podcast. And let me take the opportunity to thank each and every one of you in our audience for tuning in to every single episode. I know some of you guys say, I didn't get to catch the last 2 episodes, the last 3 episodes. That's okay. We know you'll catch up. Just follow us at the Big Potato Podcast and make sure you subscribe, like, follow, and share. Let me welcome my co-host, Stuart. What's up, bro?
Good night to all the listeners. Really glad to have you all here. Tonight is another special night, Kendall. Another special night. Episode 10, you say,
That's what we say.
Episode 10. 10 is a big number,
Ah, boy. Who's your favorite 10?
This when I hear number 10, I think, Pablo Aimar, Riquelme, Zidane, Dino.
I feel like you just miss an Argentinian 10 there.
Nah, I said Pablo Aimar. Who's at number 10?
Oh, come on, man. The ultimate number 10. Is it Maradona?
Ah, yes, it could be.
Or is it Leo Messi? Discussion for another time.
Well, I guess it's number 10, so it might get a bit messy, but I mean, if things get messy, could always carry to the Chinese laundry.
Of course. Low blows Pelton early.
I think in the front.
Anyway, you guys, as I said, we're jumping into another industry tonight. Last episode, we had fashion retail. Got a shout out Fits by Brits. Really had a great discussion. So many people said that they were so inspired by that episode and many of the other episodes as well. And of course, that's our duty here on the Big Potato Podcast, ready to inspire current and future entrepreneurs to follow your dreams and goals. Tonight, episode 10, we welcome a very, very special guest. He's a visionary entrepreneur, spotting and optimizing on overlooked opportunities to add value. He has created countless memorable experiences for his clients and all the while growing his brand to become a household market leader. Stuart, tonight we're heading outdoors,
Outdoors, I love it.
We trailblazing tonight, We're going to go down our path here tonight, because he has diversified and expanded and grown in his core industry. He's the founder and CEO of HikeNation, also the founder and CEO of Ultra Travel Club. None other than Mr. Diory. Welcome to the Big Potato Podcast, brother.
Thanks so much for having me, guys. It's an honor. Pleasure, in fact.
Beautiful, man. And I mean, we're talking a lot of stuff tonight, you guys. We're talking outdoors, as I said. We're talking hiking. We're talking about making different moves outdoors in the outdoor recreational activities and in that whole industry. We're talking about the merchandising around it and all the opportunities around it. And we're talking travel. I mean, everybody is so interested to know how they could enter, how they could participate in this industry. Tourism is involved, so people, I know you're interested. But before we jump into getting to know Diory a little better, you guys know the drill. Our first segment is called What Caught Our Eye this week. And I'll kick it off this week. And this week, remember what caught our eye, just in case you're new to it, quick entrepreneurial insights on articles or stories of significance, right? So I was going over some research for this episode. And, a lot of this stuff, giving you the data, the stats, all the details, all the different reports. But then there was a very interesting story that stood out to me. I guess it's really what caught my eye. And it was on BBC.com. And it said Christmas Day hikes aim to fight loneliness. I was very curious about what this article was about. So I checked it out. And in a nutshell, some hikes were set up on Christmas Day. This is last Christmas for people who don't want to be alone. So, some people are on the holidays, they're alone, they may not have a family to spend time with or whatever reason. So they targeted these people as well as people who just wanted to try something different. And Steve Upton, who is of Newcastle Hiking, an organization there, he organized this venture and he experienced loneliness before himself. He felt broken, so he understood what it meant to be lonely at this point in time. So as I said, he decided to build a little bit of community. See who else out there felt this way or may have been going through something similar. He also had the opportunity to start doing hikes and his hiking club because he also had some mental health challenges, and hiking and being outdoors really turned his life around. Now, in a nutshell, that's the article. You could check it out, you could read more. But what caught my eye here is really the impact on mental health, which we know is a huge topic for a while now, but so many more people are focusing on it now. And the mere fact that someone could turn their life around, essentially, by starting to do more outdoor activities, hiking, and really building a community around that. And even as an NGO, or even as a business in some form, as an entrepreneur, you can seek out opportunities as to how it is you could become involved in something like this. That is what caught my eye tonight. And I mean, it's a bit different, but it's also something that is so pertinent. And I don't know if you have any feedback on that, Diory.
That's pretty interesting. I think in a growing world where we're more connected, people feel more lonely than ever. So I'm not surprised. But that is very, very interesting.
Yeah. Now, is it something that you've seen based on your experience in doing hiking and hikes for a number of years? I know we'll get into more details of that later on, but have you seen the impact on just being outdoors, being one with nature? My co-host Stuart, he went to the beach recently and it was like a life-changing experience for him. Mm-hmm. Do you see that as well, Diory, with some of your clients, some of your friends that may go hiking with you?
For sure. I think when we had the COVID pandemic, I think that was eye-opener at that point in time because obviously everything was locked down. You had people still taking their chances, but the vast majority of us were home. And when things opened back, we literally saw a surge, an explosion in people booking hikes and booking just outdoor experiences in general. Because people really miss just the ability to just, as you said, just go to the beach or just walk around the savannah. You don't even have to reach that far. Just taking that fresh air in the morning, in the evening, come out in April, see the pui trees bloom. Those are the simple things I think we take for granted.
Awesome. Well said. Stuart, what was the beach?
No, the beach really, when you get caught up in this cycle, like how I am caught up in this cycle of multiple projects going on at the same time, you forget that you have nice things, you could go and do. It was really a change, a scenery, a change of mindset, really relieve somebody's stress. Just listen to the waves crashing, just change your whole vibe, your whole energy just changed. So I could understand that story. In fact, I like that story because when I was doing research on this episode as well, I learned so many things about the industry that it was interesting to me. That the different types of hiking, and one of them is health and wellness hiking. So there's so many things about this industry. This industry is so large, being part of the outdoor industry. There's nothing I could really add to it because it's already a brilliant idea, and you could see the need for it, and you could see it's solving a real problem that matters, which are the problems we should be all looking to solve right now, problems that matter. But I love it. And I love what Diory said as well in response, the growth he saw post-COVID, because as part of the trends I came across in my research is that after COVID, there was a boom across the globe with regard to outdoor activities. So I'm glad he was able to capitalize on it.
And I mean, that boom, we're still seeing it happening now, where the entire industry, even on the retail side, in terms of the accessories and the gear that you need, that is growing as well. And that is part of the conversation we'll talk about a little later on. But Stuart, what caught your eye this week?
So what caught my eye is an article called Sustainable Growth Strategies for Your Outdoor Brand This Earth Day. It was from the Outdoor Industry Association. And they were giving you some instructions in terms of how you, as someone participating in nature, could monitor and reduce your carbon footprint, not just a carbon footprint, but the amount of pathogens and so you put it into the environment to enter into. A lot of people when they go hiking, not saying everyone, but there's always a complaint that you go to the waterfall and you're finding a set of remains, litter all over the place. Or even when people go to the beach, you might find some litter. So it was interesting because they were saying that the first thing you should really do is basically measure your own carbon footprint and what you bring into the environments, set your reduction targets, and then create your own reduction plan. So my thing is ready for Diory to find out how much of this plays a role in his thinking when he's going out there to make sure that everything that they go out with, they bring back, don't add any pathogens into the environment that may affect some animals, some plants, something. You never know these things work. But it's just really to get an idea as to what Diory's thoughts were on this article.
Well, the saying goes, take only pictures, leave only footprints. That's a very popular outdoor saying. And basically it means that you're not leaving anything that you came with there but a footprint. And you're only taking anything. The only thing you're taking is a picture. And of course, on all of our events, tours, everything we do with clients, that's what we always strive to do. Even in some cases where we go and there might be another group there or other hikers there on the trail. In many cases, we've had persons on our team and even customers, patrons that we have, they might walk with a garbage bag in their bag and they might see a bottle or two and they might, pick it up and come back out with garbage, because obviously nobody is going there. City council is not passing by the waterfall to pick up the trash. Exactly. So somebody has to get it back out, So that is usually our motto all the time.
Mm-hmm. I loved what you just said there, but the article was deep. The article even went into PFAS as they call it. These permanent forever chemicals that are in everything. They come about from the petrochemical industry, and they appear in everything from your dental floss, your
sunscreen,
everything, even your dynamite wrapper. Food packaging, wax paper, all of these things have it. So it's even the clothes people might wear onto the hikes, that might leave some residue. At somewhere down the line might lead to some negative effects. So it's just things to think about, just showing it out there.
For sure. That's some good stuff. The article, that is.
Yeah, for sure.
And I mean, interestingly enough, if it is we continue to keep the mindset of understanding, if we keep our environment in a particular state, it would reflect on us as the human beings who get to enjoy nature and this very environment. And that's how we'll wrap up this first segment called What Caught Our Eye, brought to you by IBOMAQ. Whether you're seeking guidance or solutions for your business, we're here to help. Contact us via IBOMAQ868@gmail.com. That's IBOMAQ868@gmail.com. And let's discuss how we can collaborate for your success. And we're back with an outdoors conversation tonight. Yeah. It's time to get off the tablet, get off the couch. I mean, it might be a little hard, right, Stuart? It's a basketball going on, Champions League final around the corner. But we need to move the bodies a bit, Stuart.
You need to move the bodies. You need to keep active. COVID showed people that you need to be out there. You need to have fresh air in your lungs. You need to have your heart pumping, your lungs working. And again, just the de-stressing, the decompressing. We need that. So people, when they say you only miss the water when the well run dry.
Literally.
When COVID come and the well run dry, people couldn't go outside, couldn't even go to Maracas. All of a sudden, as they open, everybody outside. So it's just how the world turns, right?
And it's a great point to bring our guest in tonight to find out more about heading outside, but also a lot more about what our beautiful Twin Island state of Trinidad and Tobago has to offer. With us tonight is Mr. Diory Thomas of HikeNation. So Diory, it's time to get down to the meat of the matter. Tell us a little bit about your journey, your early start, your early beginnings, the very start of you thinking, here, what's going on? I want to be an entrepreneur and in this particular industry.
Well, to be honest, that wasn't the plan from the jump. What it was is I came back from Barbados, from UEKville. I took some time off from university and I was working in Trinidad and had some friends at the time, and we were just, exploring different trails. So every weekend, more or less, we would go somewhere different, a different waterfall, a different outdoor experience in Trinidad. And one day we went to, and I'm not sure if you know where Mount Tabor is. Mount Tabor is basically the proper name for Mount St. Benedict, right? So that's the mountain. If you're coming down the highway, let's say past Cunsaltancy, you just have to look up and you're going to see a ridge with some pine trees. That's basically Mount Tabor or Mount St. Benedict. What happened was the monks who built the current church at Mount St. Benedict, they were actually building one further into the bush, but they were unsuccessful. So they end up settling at one that a little lower in terms of elevation. That's a little easier to get to. But the remains of that first initial structure that they tried to create deep in the bush there is still there, actually. But of course, it's covered and it's overgrown with bush. So we were actually on a mission that Sunday morning to find that particular structure, right? We didn't find it, spoiler alert, but in the process of trying to find it, we end up turning back midway because some rain started to fall. Right. And we were waiting out the rain. And we had a conversation after lunch, influenced by some edibles. We had a conversation after lunch. And the conversation was something like, guys, aren't we doing this every weekend? And I'm like, yeah. So why don't we do this for people? It was three of us we were talking. And another guy was like, sure, that's a good idea. And somebody else interjected and was like, what should we call it? And immediately like some sort of vision from the future, something told me it should be called HikeNation. 2 words, HikeNation. That's it. And that could have been February 2015. We had our first hike at the end of that month, so I think could be beginning of March. And the whole thing just exploded from there. My goal really was to make it a little different, because there are a lot of hiking clubs and there are a lot of outdoor experiences. But at that point in time, you didn't have many of them that were doing all-inclusive experience. So we were more leaning towards, okay, you wake up off your bed Sunday morning, you roll off, and you just reach on the trail. You didn't eat breakfast, you didn't even have transportation, but you get there, you get breakfast, you get drinks, you get snacks, you meet new people, and that was the idea. So from the jump, we had all of those things included by default. And as time went on, we refined the experience by adding lunch, by adding all sorts of things to the experience. And that's basically how HikeNation, our all-inclusive outdoor concept, was basically born 9 years ago.
Fantastic. What a story, and how things can derive and appear and go from visual, creative to action, life, and reality after some good edibles.
Inspired thinking.
But I mean, in terms of you starting up this venture, HikeNation, I mean, you already summed it up nicely in a nutshell. But I'm certain that there would have been a significant amount of planning that I would have to say your business partners at the time and yourself would have had to do to pull off that first hike. That sounded like it was about probably a few weeks after you all decided to really start this venture. So what was that early planning process like? The first time you guys are doing something like this?
Oh, for sure it was. I mean, at the time I was working in the bank, and my 8 to 4 job was basically suffering because I would be in work, I kid you not, on the people computer, and I would be emailing people, hey, don't forget we have this hike coming up this weekend, and messaging friends, and the whole thing just kind of steamrolled, and month after month, the crowds got bigger. I think the first hike we could have had maybe 60 persons.
Wow.
And from there, to be honest, it just kind of got out of control in terms of the amount of people. But over time, of course, we realized the sweet spot in terms of numbers, and we realized a lot of things were learned in that first 2 years, 2 to 3 years, basically. But yes, it was a considerable amount of work.
Well, I could imagine, and I understand. I was kind of reading between the lines in terms of what you're saying, which you got to find that sweet spot in which you got to numbers now, because going out there with a large crowd could be risky.
Correct,
everyone
yeah.
involved, so that would have taken some learning. But that's my question, how did you get to know what your customers want? How do you know what they like? How did you figure out the sweet spot? What sort of story could you tell us that would have guided your thinking with regard to that?
Well, Steve Jobs said it best. He said, you don't ask customers what they want, because they will tell you what they want today. And guess what? That's probably going to change tomorrow. Right? So what I had to do was to look at the data in terms of registration. So a simple thing like back then, we had a shuttle. And over time, what we found is that less people end up taking a shuttle because people who are coming to hikes, the vast majority of them don't come alone. So they might come with 1 or 2 other friends. So it's quite easy for them to carpool. Also, the type of crowd that we attract, the demographic we have specifically, they tend to want to be able to jump in their cars after and leave. They don't necessarily want to have to wait until everybody comes out of the trail. We had an instance where we went Matlot. We could have had maybe close to 100 persons. We had 4 shuttles, 4 big maxis. That particular hike was a disaster, to say the least, because there were so many different issues. But specifically, you had instances where persons opted not to take the shuttle, and they shut down on the way to Matlot on the side of the road. And they were friends of somebody on the team. And of course, we're trying to have some sympathy for them. But at the same time, I have 90 something other people to get to a hike on time. So I can't sit down and wait for your mechanic to reach the Matlot. Correct. And after that particular hike, the individuals in question took to social media and blast us highly and just dragged us through the mud because we chose not to wait on them. So it's a myriad of issues that would have happened. And, they say hindsight is really, that's what it's about. But it's a myriad of issues that really happen that really allow you to learn these experiences. So over time, we've realized that, the shuttle thing is actually not the best idea, actually. It's better if people get there on their own. There are many other groups that do the shuttle thing. But even on that particular hike, we had an instance where the hike is over, same hike, and we have one person in particular. She's still on the trail with one of our team leaders, of course. She wasn't by herself. And everybody's dressed and ready to go on the shuttle. This is 4 shuttles at 3:00 in the afternoon, having left St. Augustine 6 in the morning, because of course it's Matlot. So you're talking about a 3-hour drive. Mm-hmm. And this individual takes like an hour to come out. People are furious because we had food included, but obviously we had to wait on this particular person. So none of the shuttles left until she came out, and it was just relics. So all of those things that we learned, best practice, the best way of doing things, and we learned that by trial and error, literally by getting burnt each and every time. And sometimes even like terms and conditions, customers are going to show up. Customers are going to book hikes, not show up, and then cancel 24 hours before and give you some excuse or some reason. And every time they give us a new reason or a new excuse, we have to go back to our terms and conditions and amend those terms and conditions to include, the fact that you need to message us when you reach and not reach to the meeting point and sit in a car. Because that has happened before. You sit in a car and then we reach. You don't say anything. We got everybody, we leave, and then you're messaging us an hour to tell us you're here. Now. And we can't do anything about it because we left the meeting point already. So all of those things we had to, amend and fix. But it was a roller coaster ride in terms of trying to sort all of that out and figure all of that out. I think the learning process with regards to business in general, that usually takes a solid 2 to 3 years. And that's why you can't just think that you're going to get into any industry and make $1 million overnight, because a lot of people think that, but they don't learn those lessons. So they don't really know how the whole thing works. They don't know what works. They don't know what don't work. And they keep trying the same thing over and over. And it fails because they're not looking at the data and looking at what customers are telling them.
They don't want to listen. They just want to stick to what the business plan indicated, what the assumptions were. They're not listening to what we said last episode. The king of the market is the customer. They will see through all the nonsense you're trying to sell them. So you have to understand the customer, and I really enjoyed you giving those little stories there, because the entrepreneurs need to understand that you were saying, Mike Tyson, came with. You have your plan until you get punched in the face, and then you have to be able to adjust. So you didn't get knocked out.
Only so good up until that point.
Up until
when you
that
get punched
point,
in the face, you have to figure out, okay, what are you gonna do?
Right? Because you're gonna lie down on the ground and miss the 10 count.
It's guaranteed, and the beauty about it is you don't know when it's gonna come, but it's coming.
That is it. That is it. But it's how you respond to it. You have to come off the ground. You have to rise back up and understand, okay, you come in with the left hook and defend for that. But you need to pivot. And I like how you lay those out so that people understand it's not what your plan is when you go into the reality of the situation. Let your customer drive all your decisions.
The quick pivoting, key. Being agile, key. And as you love to say, Stuart, the lessons learned folder.
Must go in the lessons learned folder. Or else you'll continue with the shuttles, right?
Correct.
So sometimes what we realized after a while is we would keep booking shuttles, and the hike has, let's say, 35 people on it, but 5 people on each shuttle. Wow. And obviously, you're losing money because obviously you have to cover the cost of the entire shuttle. The shuttle driver don't want to hear you have 5 people. The shuttle driver wants money for 13 seats.
Of course, because you're taking them off the road, right?
So over time, it just didn't make sense for us,
Now, Diory, it's interesting that you also mentioned there that, you were working at a financial institution at the time. I don't know why it always seems to be these financial institutions that turn out some top class entrepreneurs in different industries. But what would have been, let's say, the motivating factor to say, all right, well, this is it for me? And was this HikeNation your very, very first business venture? You never tried the red mango in school or those kind of things?
Yeah, well, my both parents are business owners and have businesses. So I think on some deep level, business was always the calling for me, but I ran away from it. I think I was ducking it for a while, and I was pursuing other things. And after a while, I realized those other things doesn't make any sense. And it was in that break from school, working in the corporate world, literally seeing people next to you in the office that didn't go to A-levels or not in university, but because they came straight from O-levels and straight into the office, the work world, they're making more money than you. And it just didn't make sense to me, and I realized that I needed to do something. I was looking for answers, basically. I was at a crossroads in my life, and I realized I needed to do something different. In terms of the bank itself, I was into sales. I would do probably about, let's say, $2, maybe $3 million for the bank in terms of sales when the month come. That's credit cards, that's a couple mortgages, that's a couple car loans in there. And this is literally like convincing people to take loans with the bank. And I realized that, hey, if I could do, my rationale was, if I could do $2 million for the bank when the month come, I don't have to do $2 million for myself, but I'm sure I could do 20,000 and I could survive. That was my rationale. And after a while, we started in February. By August that same year, it still wasn't. It wasn't anything grand, or it wasn't anything to talk about HikeNation, that is. But it was enough for me to say, you know what? Let me just see where this goes. I still didn't have a plan, as most of the times that's the case. You don't have a solid plan, but you're just following that gut feeling inside that tells you, just see where this goes. And people were laughing. I clearly remember I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was like, we had a big falling out because she refused to follow HikeNation on Instagram. And I was most upset about it. And she's like, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? Hike? Key. And it was a big joke for a lot of people. But what I saw at the time, which a lot of people didn't see, was beyond that, which is the hiking was just a stepping stone for other things. So I always had a plan to do travel trips. I always had a plan to have an online store. Very early on, I realized, okay, the hikes are good, but corporate is where the money is. Team building is where the money is. Because I could take 10 people from the public on a hike for $100. But guess what? Tribe is going to pay $500 per person for 20 people to go to a hike. That's all inclusive. And that makes a little more sense than trying to get 10 extra people to join our group every month. So I always saw that. And I think a lot of people didn't see it, but blessed are those who have eyes to see, That's how it is.
And most times they laugh at you, Stuart?
Well, the people who laugh, they never took the risks. They never try anything in their life, so let them laugh. And they never have your vision. You understand what you want to do, but you can't tell them the whole plan. So they just see you doing, in their mind, they see you doing craziness, but they're not seeing the grand vision you have.
Correct.
You understand? So
yeah, because I think sometimes the plan isn't really clear for you. So it's going to be much murkier for somebody else who's looking in on the outside. Because we were just going with the flow at the time. Like I said, I had no intentions to do it full time. But I think it was calling me and I just had to answer and I couldn't just put it down. And that kind of drove me to be obsessed, basically to just get it to where I wanted it to be. And I'm still, to a certain extent, still like that, I'm still highly driven and very, very, very much obsessed with what I need to do and what I want to do,
Passionate. Passionate is the word. It's a word you always speak about on this podcast. You have to be passionate as an entrepreneur. One of the traits.
One of the key traits. And I mean, Diory, in terms of HikeNation now, because as you said, that's where it started, that's how it grew. Before Stuart jumps back in, just give us a little bit of an insight in terms of the business right now, in terms of all the diversification. You mentioned some of it just now, so it's just not hikes. Tell us a little bit more.
Well, essentially, HikeNation at this point is a tourism company that specializes in, I'd say, adventure events, private tours, and most recently, outdoor gear. The goal really was to be threefold. So to provide monthly events for persons to the public, to provide private tours if you have a company, if you have a group that you want to go down the islands, you want to do something privately, you want to do a hike, you want to do a team building, we facilitate that as well too. And we've done that for over 400 clients. A lot of that has been corporate Trinidad. Right. And during COVID, we had the idea to start an online store, but COVID kind of accelerated that plan. And we kind of started that during COVID, and that has since just rocketed off and produced this huge online store that we have with over 400 products. We're getting ready right now to open a physical store in the West where persons could actually come in and shop. In addition to all of that, we started in 2017. We segued into travel. Essentially, it's all-inclusive travel experiences. So we would plan itineraries abroad. It's group experiences. So we'd plan a vacation to, let's say, Mexico. You would get that info 12 months in advance. So you could make a down payment, and every month you could make an installment towards that vacation. The package is going to include your airfare, accommodation, transfers, tours. So essentially, you just have to show up. Basically, we have a group chat to manage everything. You get updates in that group chat, and persons just come out and they just have the time of their life. A lot of these different locations we've taken persons to see wonders of the world, like Chichen Itza. We went to Colosseum last year. We just came back from Greece. So it's just been going, and at the core of everything and all of these different spin-offs, essentially what it is just convenience, I think. I looked at the landscape 9 years ago, and that outdoor industry, it didn't seem very convenient to me. It seemed very disjointed. There were a lot of players in the industry. Nobody really dominating the space. Nobody really bringing everything together. So the idea was, okay, you're going on a hike. Well, guess what? We have gear for you to hike with. We have shoes. We have water shoes. You need a hydration backpack. You need a towel. You're getting that too.
Right.
That was the idea, basically, to provide that kind of all-inclusive outdoor fraternity, basically, that club for you to be part of. That just makes everything a little easier to experience outdoors.
Yeah, I mean, Stuart, convenience as a value proposition, so you could get better than that.
Well, you could see why the company is so successful. My question is if the girlfriend's still laughing now. I feel she crying.
Well, it's not the same one, so no.
Well, that ex-girlfriend, she crying. Yeah, because the man making sense. He making a lot of sense. But what I want you to do for me is, if, with all respect, is continue going on that line with regard to differentiation. Because, as I said, there were a lot of players in the market. But what you're offering is really about value. You have to have a value-centric approach. Because you have to really provide unique experiences and really, let's say, craft memorable journeys for your clientele, your customers. So, tell me more about the differentiation, how you separate, how you plan your things that's so different that people, they say, no, is HikeNation or nothing.
Well, essentially, I'm going to start by saying there's nothing new under the sun. And essentially, everybody is essentially doing the same thing. However, I think people all look at it differently. When we started a couple of years ago, I'd never forget, I had a meeting with the then team in Roxy Roundabout, St. James. And I stood up and I told people, I was like, if we're going to do this, let's do it properly, where we give people exactly that value, give them convenience. We know people are getting up early in the morning to come on most of these hikes. So including breakfast or including some sort of meal makes complete sense. Right. Obviously, to do all of these things, including some sort of drink, you're done, roll off your bed already because some friend dragged you on a hike. So you're not prepared. You don't have a bottle of water. The sole of your shoe barely hanging on, So let's provide you with a little beer after as a little reward for the fact that you now climb Everest and come back. And let's make it that kind of convenience. And at the time, people in the group watched me like I was crazy. Like, no, that's not going to work. That's too much money. Because obviously it would have to be more than what everybody else was charging. And going rate for a hike now, I think is still, you could get a hike for $40 to $60, maybe $80 by most providers. But again, you're not getting a lot of those providers. You're not getting those little extras, because a lot of them don't see it fit to include it because again, they just want to make a quick $60, whereas I kind of wanted to give you a little more value to make your experience in general a little easier. And that was my rationale from the jump. So everything I do with regards to whether it's travel or even the store, everything is to try to make your life a little easier. Because life already is hard as it is,
Well, as I said, Kendell, it's convenience. I'll ask you back, could you do better than that?
From how it's sung in here, you're looking to go on a hike this weekend with HikeNation. For sure. I mean, because the value that you add to the experience, and, they talk about it in all these high terms. Sometimes you're designing and you're creating memorable experiences for your clients and your customers and so on. And we hear these words sometimes, and far often they are just words in companies or organizations or with different businesses that you spend your money at. They create nothing special for you, and what I like about it is the simple things that are overlooked. As Diory keeps saying, walking in the customer's shoe, understanding their journey, literally rolling off their bed and coming out on a hike. What could I do to make that experience better? As always, entrepreneurs out there, things to ponder on. And on that note, we take a short break. Experience the magic of Anthony's Carry Jazz series at Kaiso Blues Cafe. Join us on Thursday, June 6th for the third installment featuring the incredible Kyle Peters. It's going to be a night of electrifying live music that you won't want to miss. Mark your calendars and bring your friends for an unforgettable evening. Follow Anthony's Carry Jazz on social media for more details and updates. We're here with HikeNation. Should I call him the HikeNation boss? Or at least one of? Yep. Diory Thomas is online. And when I said one of, is because I want you to tell us a little bit about your team. In the last segment, you mentioned maybe having some changes in your core team at the time. And on the entrepreneurial journey, every single entrepreneur that we bring onto this program, they always talk about, the selective process they go through to put together their team, the skills they look for, the mindset they look for, and really some people to share in their vision and bring it alive. What has been your experience in developing your team over the last 9 years?
Well, a lot of people send out ads to add people to their group and their club and their team. We actually don't do that. What actually happens, to be honest, is we have events and persons attend events, and this happens like a lot. You would see one person come 2-3 events back to back because they really like that kind of outdoor vibes. No? It might be a DDI, it might be a hike, it might be camping. And after a while, even on the event itself, they might help along the way. This is like patrons. They might pick up a cooler, or they might give out some light jackets, Right. And what we've realized is those are the people who are really passionate about that outdoor vibes, and they just kind of naturally gravitate. And sometimes we see that and we pick up on that, and we usually give those people opportunities to join us. Because I feel like you want to get people who generally want to be there, and you don't just want people who just looking for something to do on the weekend and a quick side hustle. Because you have more of those people and less of the former. So that's our approach in terms of adding persons to the team. But essentially, we're at a point now where we have persons who are in the Coast Guard. We have about 3 or 4 people in the Coast Guard. We have 1 or 2 guys who are in the Fire Brigade. It's a nice blend of persons who've been with us a while, new people, young, old, in between. So we have a nice little mix of people who genuinely all share that passion for outdoor activity.
Sounds good. And in terms of your initial core team, you guys who would have come together and decided to do this after that initial conversation, how did your skills or each person's skills in that initial conversation kind of complement being able to bring the vision alive?
Well, in the earliest, we had we had too much people, to be honest. And that classic saying, too much hands will spoil the pot. That's right. Exactly what it was. And my motto has always been less is more. I think I'd rather have 3 people who would be there for you no matter what than 10 people, 30 people just to say I have people. But when you need somebody to pick you up from Price Mart with some drinks, they're not available, or everybody busy. Or if you need somebody last minute this weekend to do it all, everybody busy. Nobody's saying, well, you know what, I'm busy, but let me see how I can rearrange my schedule to make this happen. Let me get back to you. You understand? Right. And that's what we have now. but in the beginning that wasn't the case. I think, and I don't blame people because, it's like I said in the past, in the earlies, I myself didn't know what it was going to become and where it was going. And a lot of people are looking at things, when they start companies, when they start a business, a lot of people are looking to you, particularly when you have friends. They're looking to you and they somehow think that because you are friends with them, they somehow think that that gives them some sort of entitlement to whatever your business proceeds are, or this or that. And you get that entitlement from them without them saying, you know what, before I give you that entitlement, do you need me to pick you up from anywhere? Do you need anything? You understand? You need me to drop anybody anywhere? How can I help? How can I add value to the whole experience? Or how can I make what you're doing easier? They don't ask that question. They just ask, you know what, how much you going to pay me? How much you going to pay me for my time? Simply because you and them are friends. And I have gone through a lot of that. I have lost a lot of friends because of that. And that's just how it goes. That's how it goes.
Yeah, that is really how it goes. Because, I mean, it might sound bad, but sometimes it might only cost you $10 to really find out who someone really is. It might cost you $300 to find out who someone really is. You have to know who really in your corner, because when you're putting together your team, and I'll use capital T, capital E, capital A, capital M, your team, certain criteria you're looking for. Ability to execute critical success factors. Be reliable, as you said. Be well networked, up, down, and across the supply and value chains, All of these things, they have to have the same vision, mission, and aspirations as you. So you have to know who you're dealing with and what you're analyzing when you're pulling together your team. But what you said just now was interesting to me. You have Coast Guard members, you have fire service members in the team. But how do you stay on top of the training? Do you rely on the individual training? So the fireman, obviously, he's like expert in certain things. The Coast Guard is expert in certain things. Or do you have overall training for things like, for instance, how to deal with wildlife encounters that everyone on the staff will have, or medical emergencies, or just how to keep the group engaged and informed while they're on the trek, on the tour? Things like weather changes, how to analyze these things. How do you deal with that training? Do you have overall training for all your staff together, or you just rely on their individual expertise?
Well, what's quite interesting is I think I've been hiking for like 10 years now, and I could count on one hand how many times I've seen a snake. It's probably been about between 4 to 5. And when I say a snake, I mean a snake that actually might be of some sort of threat to your life now. So wildlife encounters are, not the most common thing. It's actually less common than people think, particularly on trails that are well traversed, because what you find tend to happen is that wildlife kind of stay away from those particular parts. You more get those encounters if you go into what you call virgin forest, which is forest that's more deep into the bush. But back to the training issue, what we do and what we did a lot of in the earlies is that before we take persons on a hike, we usually do a scout. And in the earlies, we did a lot of this. So we would go to the trail before we actually take persons on the trail. And it's really twofold. Part of it is to make sure that the trail hasn't changed, to see if any tree fell, if we have to adjust anything. You might have to do a little chopping here and there just to clear the path. And the other part of it is really the staff themselves, who you go with. They kind of have fun and time to enjoy the trail, because obviously when they take people on the trail, they don't have that opportunity to have fun because they're working. But they have that fun to enjoy the trail. And most importantly is at those particular times when we might run a little training exercise, or we might impart some knowledge on some new team member who might be there, and that's usually how we get it done.
Nice. But what are some of the legal considerations if, for instance, I wanted to jump into this industry? Are there, for instance, rules on terms of the size of groups? It doesn't sound so. Like certain insurance they might need to take out.
More the regulatory things.
More the regulatory, the legal side of things. What are some of the considerations that I will need to be concerned about if I were interested in coming into this industry?
Well,
are there any?
The thing is, Trinidad's hiking industry is pretty old. I'll say probably 40, 50 years. There's been groups, like established groups, that's been hiking. And in that time, I don't think there has been any legislation that governs tours and govern hikes in that way. And I think there's a reason for that, particularly because unlike with a lot of other Caribbean islands, Trinidad itself doesn't really push tourism as we should, or as much as other Caribbean islands. Just to give you a statistic, in 2021, Trinidad did probably about maybe 60, maybe 75 million revenue from tourism. In comparison, Jamaica last year did probably about 4.5 billion, and that's US billion. So we remember we have oil and gas. So the perspective is the money that could be derived from tourism in the grand scheme of things. I understand the logic. It is even if you develop the industry, that 3 or 4 billion that you're making in tourism, you're making that in oil in a month from oil revenue, right? So because of that, the industry, I think, has just been left to kind of govern itself. And it's sad because every now and then you might hear hikers getting lost or somebody drowning. That happens every single year. Thankfully it never happened with us, but that happens with a lot of groups. So it's basically a free for all. What they are trying to do in the past recent, I'll say probably 2-3 years, particularly after COVID, with the influx and the boom of basically every Tom, Dick and Harry have a hiking club now, is that they're trying to put some rules and regulations in place. But again, nothing is set in stone in terms of law. So it's still pretty much a Wild West. I have a good business friend of mine. He does more TripAdvisor stuff. So he does the same thing I do, but he does it for more incoming tourists. And with regards to that, they have a governing body, and for that, you have to have your insurance and you have to have certain things in place to do that. But generally, if you want to open a hiking club tomorrow, you just need to buy some jackets, some walkie-talkies, and you're set. It's just that simple, to be honest.
Low barriers to entry.
Yep, very low barriers to entry. But you said TripAdvisor just now? Because I think we came across in some of the research I was doing, a lot of TripAdvisor tours available. It was very interesting that TripAdvisor had so many detailed tours, like a beach tour, a south tour, scenic tour of Trinidad.
Right,
so many different tours available.
The guys who are the majority of the players in my space. We also on TripAdvisor as well, Viator. But the majority of people who are in my space, they are not there. They are catering to the domestic market, locals. Whereas to be on those platforms regularly, because losing a local in the bush and losing a foreigner is two totally different things, right?
Yeah.
So to be on those international platforms and to do good business, you need to be proper, But a lot of the persons who are doing hikes, the vast majority of them are not there because they're not doing it, I think, as a serious business. A lot of people are doing it more as a side hustle, and which is why when I started, people look at me and laugh because for them, they didn't see it as a viable business
opportunity.
It is what it is, But we've kind of turned it into that and made it that now,
They're not seeing the scale of it. They're not seeing your vision again.
Correct.
I mean, you have
correct.
an online
Also,
store,
just to
you have
add as well,
retail.
too, we do other things besides hikes, and a lot of other players in the space. That is kind of like all they do. So we've done team building for probably about 300, maybe 400 companies. You know, in terms of not just hikes, but DDIs, camping, fishing. So the whole idea of HikeNation is everything outdoors. So it's not just hikes. At this point in time, hikes is actually a small portion of what we do.
That is it. As I said, that is the whole portion of what they want to do. That is their whole vision. Being in the bush, running through the bush with some friends. But you see all the different revenue streams.
It's not very
importance
hard.
of business planning.
It's not an easy job, because the vast majority of people who go on these hikes are, I wouldn't say the vast majority, but a good bit of them are unfit. So what you have happening is, how far again?
Yeah.
You get that question every 15 minutes.
Are we
Essentially, millennials want to just go to a waterfall and look cute and take a selfie for Instagram. They don't want to climb Everest. They want the Everest views for the grams, but they don't want to climb the mountain to get there. That is the reality of it. And because of that, we've had to kind of modulate and kind of scale back our experiences to be a little more easier and a little more simpler. Because to be honest with you, I ain't really trying to hear anybody complaining in my ears for the next 60 minutes on a trail, to be honest with you. So it's better that the hike is too easy. It could always come back from too easy. But I know a lot of people who have been scarred because they went on first time, they went on hikes and somebody carried them Paria, which is 3 hours one way.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people don't come back from that. So they do that and it's like, you know what? Not me and that hiking thing. I get, you know, and that's how it goes.
It's interesting that you mentioned taking those selfies for the gram and I guess TikTok these days too, right? But
correct.
How has that social media in general been able to help you with your brand, with your business? Really and truly, you know, have you delved into influencer marketing? You know, you decided to use particular, I guess, muses, or how do you go about building your brand on social media? Because your pages also seem to be performing very well and telling a lot of stories, which is important in this industry.
Yeah, for sure. Social media for us has been a big plus, and our Instagram page is like followed by a lot of, I had Bunchy Garland message us that time and say, hey, we're supposed to link up for the longest while, you know? So it's followed by a lot of well-known people as well too. Cause we have been out for a while too. We have influencers on the team, actually, that we've added in the past probably 5 years. A lot of them come to experiences, they capture content, they capture reels, and they post it. And you can see a lot of those reels on Instagram. I've never been a person who's been about following the trend, though. So right now, I know TikTok is pumping heavy. But for me and the team to manage both Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok just seems like a lot.
Yeah.
And unlike a lot of other persons in the space, we actually have our own website and had one since 2016. So we capture a lot of data in terms of email addresses, and we have a pumping newsletter with a lot of views and a lot of reads that we send out monthly as well too. So for us, while we have all those assets, because we are on TikTok, you know, and we have all of those social media plugs, I kind of use them very strategically and not necessarily just because everybody's on it and everybody's doing the same thing, you know, and not on that follow everybody bandwagon vibes. You know, that's never been my play.
It seems that based on what Diory is saying, and Stuart, we heard it from a couple other entrepreneurs on the show, TikTok is still a platform that, we're really building out on this side of the world, especially to help with our businesses in particular industries.
It is. And if you look at the stats, I mean, it's not as bad as we think because I think it's first or second in terms of the usage in Trinidad.
But the thing about TikTok is, and I know we've had this discussion with the social media team, the vast majority of persons viewing TikTok, the demographic is, I'll say, 20 to 25. And the reality is that demographic don't have much money to spend.
They need free vibes. Free vibes.
Correct. It's about vibes and views, but in terms of spend, how much can you extract from that demographic in terms of buying power? Even with our vacations, we've seen that the demographic for our vacations in terms of persons, it leans more female based, and it's, I'll say, between 25 to 40. That's where the sweet spot is really for our kind of experiences, because also our experiences are usually priced a little higher than the competition. So I'll be honest with you, HikeNation is not for everybody. Even the experiences, the tours, the private experiences, it's a little more expensive because we want to give a little more value versus just, like I said, just charging you $60 for a hike,
But sometimes it's just important to be in the conversation, even though they are not the target demographic now. Based on what they're saying, they may be there within 5 years. So at least you'll be first to mind.
They will be. Correct.
And
you'll
be first to mind, when they think, okay, actually, I got a raise in the office there, Now I can actually afford to go on a hike. I always seen HikeNation, always, since I was small on TikTok, I've seen HikeNation. I leave an imprint, So you're the first store that come, HikeNation. But let me ask you a question about the marketing. So, no, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
What I was going to say is I have a friend of mine. He told me, I'd never forget, we were having doubles some time ago, a long time ago. And he told me, he was like, how much you charge right now? And I told him, I was like, at the time, it probably could have been like $100 for a hike. He was like, raise it. No, it was like 80. He was like, double it. Go to 160. I was like, why? Everybody else is 80. Why you want me to, price myself completely out? He was like, his rationale is this, and he does marketing as well. He was like, if everybody else charging 80 and you charging 160, somebody's going to look at that 160 and be like, some people are going to be like, that's way too expensive. I can't afford that. That's cool. Other persons are going to look at that as like, why is that so expensive? They're going to look into it and find out when they see, well, okay, all these stuff you're getting, they're going to realize that it's a completely different experience, And you're going to have people more leaning into that rather than choosing just to spend the $80, Because that's why I started by saying there's nothing new under the sun. Everybody is essentially doing the same tours, but the experience is usually quite different,
As you mentioned that, it's all
whole 5 Ps and 7 Ps conversation there, Stuart.
But I was not going to bring up some marketing models and so, but I think I'll leave it alone for now.
And when we increased the price at that time, we were the most expensive at that time. I think people have since caught up to us in terms of pricing, but still not as much. And we still try to separate ourselves in terms of kind of experiences, because I really want to give people value in terms of experiences, and giving that, as you know, it costs money. It's not cheap, Yeah. And in the earlies, we had a lot of sponsors on board, like Carib and, Himalaya and Bridens and all these sponsors that kind of offset a lot of those costs to kind of build the brand up to where it is now, and we totally grateful for that.
Well, let me ask you a question about the branding and the marketing, and if you had any ideas of innovation in terms of that side of the thing. You spoke about the use of like photography and storytelling in the social media, but can we expect something like, say, a Bear Grylls style TV show or some Survivor in the bush of Trinidad? Any ideas that you have that you might want to share with regard to the innovation of your marketing moving forward?
Well, I've actually been a fan of bagels since I was small. I've been watching Man vs. Wild and Naked and Afraid and all those shows on Discovery and Nat Geo, and bagels is the guy. And of course, we always looking for ways to, I think, innovate the events. However, in most recent time, particularly since COVID, we realized that the events is not necessarily the direction we want to go in. Events are still going to be there, and that's not going to change. But we've kind of shifted more down the road of the store, because what I've realized is a lot of people are doing events, and you could go to a hike with a vast number of persons or do outdoor experiences with a vast number of persons. But guess what? It's very difficult to get a proper hiking shoe. It's very difficult to get a proper backpack. Or if I asked you to name 5 places you could buy a camping tent, you might be able to give me 3. But there isn't any one place you could think of that, they will have camping tents for sure. You understand? And that's what we're trying to do more of in terms of provide these essential and critical items to kind of support the entire industry and to support a lot of our guests as well and our patrons. Because a lot of our patrons ask us, okay, tell me where I could get a good hiking shoe. Tell me where I could get a good trekking pole. And we started to get so many of those questions. We started to realize, we need to do something about this problem, and that's where HikeNation still kind of comes in. So, of course, we always have events, and we do have a couple of ideas that we've been sitting on for a while, but it's just the industry has shifted, I think. And I think at this point in time, it kind of needs us to be that supplier of outdoor gear, which is what we're doing. And that's what we want to develop and grow into something big.
I think I could see you writing a hiking book, not on your store as well, or even some custom hiking maps, some HikeNation hike maps, or the greatest spots, I think you have such a brand that you'll be able to make that work.
That is definitely the goal in the future. But
too much secrets.
I personally feel like we haven't reached the pinnacle that we want to reach. I think for anybody to call themselves an expert, you really had a grind and put in that work. Because they say it takes like 10,000 hours in anything to become an expert. I think we've done that 10,000 hours, but I want to do it again and again and again, so that when I reach that point and I tell people, well, XYZ ABC, nobody can really argue that, no. Nobody can really go against that, no, because that this person has been doing that for like 20, 25 years now. He sounds like he knows what he's talking about.
Well, what you said is important as well, because I put in the 10,000 hours and become the expert, but people don't like to revise and review and refresh and update.
Relearn.
And see what the trends are. So you might have a marketing director who has a marketing degree from the 70s, before wireless and data and mobile devices.
He was in class with Cutler.
Yeah, exactly. But their masters is in marketing from 1974. So unless that person was doing, as I said, reviewing, revising, putting another 10,000 hours, making sure you're on top of the trends, making sure you're on top of the technology and everything that's going on, you're kind of just going to get lost with everyone else.
And that's a fantastic point, Stuart. As we get ready to wrap it up, what a conversation tonight. What a conversation tonight. We in the AC here, but I feel like we could have done this on the trail, That's the kind of conversation that we have in here with Mr. Diory Thomas. He's online with us as we get ready to wrap it up on this very special episode. I've heard so much about the technology that you use, your digital platforms, your website, all these things. I'm sure you have the booking tools. We don't have to worry about those things. In terms of technology in the outdoors, We see trends now where people are using drones on hikes. They're using different types of technology out there. Before we wrap up, is there anything that, in terms of trends, technology, and otherwise that you guys have added to your repertoire that might differentiate you as well from some of the others?
Well, what we've been experimenting with is, I'm not sure if you know, Facebook Meta Quest, the
Right.
Oculus. Yeah. So what I think is going to happen, and I foresee this happening maybe in about, I'll say, 10, 15 years, is Quest is going to get to the point where, well, and even with the Vision Pro, it's not there yet, but all of these devices are going to get to the point where you would be able to wake up in the morning, put on your VR goggles, and I would think go on a hike with HikeNation from the comfort of your couch. Mm-hmm. Whereas the hike is actually going on. But because the hike is going on, we have team leaders, I'd say, on the hike who might be recording the session and live streaming that experience to your VR goggles. So you're going to have the traditional people who still want to come out and hike, and yeah, that's still going to happen. But you're going to have the people who might be a little lazy and might be able to say, you know what, let me just pay a little $5.99 US. Let me log in and let me hike with HikeNation today from the comfort of my bedroom. That is kind of where we want to go. And that is where I see technology going in the future. And all we're doing is kind of just waiting until the tech is there. Because it's not there as yet. And waiting until the VR gets widespread adopted. But it's going down that road,
Jordan, we're passionate on that.
I was trying to hold my tongue. No, I really was. Because, to be honest, my master's practicum was on augmented reality, mixed reality, virtual reality. So I kind of know a lot about what they're saying there, and the chasm that has to be crossed for the wide acceptance of the technology. And also the fact that the technology and the software is two different things. The hardware is advanced at a certain rate. The software is advanced at a different rate. And is the machinery two of them is where you're trying to wait for as well right now.
Correct. And even also getting wireless signal in the bush, I think we're going to need to wait till we get like stuff that like 6G, 6G and those greater Wi-Fi networks here to be able to stream something from Paria Beach or Paria Waterfall. But I can almost guarantee you HikeNation is probably going to be the first ones to adopt something like that.
Just make sure your environmental protection policies are in fact where they carry that 6G to the jungle.
And I think that's a fantastic note to wrap up tonight. I mean, as I said a moment ago, what a discussion. We covered so many topics, so many themes for entrepreneurs out there. I mean, in the outdoor experience industry, yes, directly. But even for entrepreneurs in other industries and entrepreneurs in general, so many insights in terms of network building, partnership, team building, and developing the right team to really go out there and be successful in transforming the vision and the idea into a viable business opportunity. Learn so much about HikeNation, so much about this brilliant entrepreneurial mind that this is what the podcast is all about, really revealing the gems that we have right here in our society.
Yvonne got relationship advice.
Yeah.
Follow your dream.
Fantastic.
Follow your passion. Let them laugh. That's great relationship advice.
Well, I just want to make that correction. I learned very early on that following your passion is one thing, but that doesn't always lead to success. What you really need to follow is your skill set. Because you might be passionate about football, but I mean, one in every 3 people can play football. So the barrier to be a professional footballer, the barrier to entry is so high. Right. You're better off with your 8 to 4. Mm-hmm. But whatever your talent is, I think that's what you need to follow. Mm-hmm. That follow your passion thing isn't always the best route to take.
Yeah. And whatever that skill set is, at least make sure that you are passionate about doing it when you start executing. And really and truly, I mean, that is what the discussion was about tonight. We heard it, the entire journey from start and still ongoing and continuing into the future, into a different reality one day. I want to say congratulations to you, Diory, and your team, of course. I think you guys are doing fantastic work. And this is why we like revealing some of these stories and some of these background information, because a lot of people don't even know sometimes what it takes to achieve it. Overnight success, right, Stuart?
Yeah. Lucky people just getting breakthroughs, just overnight, just lucky.
Wake up one morning and it's pure success.
Yeah, HikeNation, just in the morning, just luckily. He didn't put any work into it.
Any last words you would like to leave the audience of the Big Potato Podcast with, Diory?
There's a quote that I recently heard, and it's just stuck with me. And every now and then, I usually have to share it with somebody. And it basically goes like, if you could meet success and defeat, and if you could meet both of them and recognize both of them as imposters and be unchanged, I think that is where you're gonna be okay. So basically what it says is you shouldn't be fazed by either success or defeat, because a lot of people, they get high on success and a lot of people get low in the moments of defeat. But if you could recognize that both of them are imposters at the same time, and you could be unchanged and unfazed by either of them, then you're on the right path.
Brilliant.
Well said.
Deep words. Trying to take over from Stuart here tonight, boy.
Yeah, you take my spot.
Poetic. So, Diory, thank you very much again for joining us tonight. And we do wish you all the very best with every one of your ventures, with all. I don't even want to say one, with all of your ventures. All the best to you and your family, sir.
I only expect to see more and more successes just from listening to the answers, understanding the thinking. As I say, to the moon. Shout out to GameStop.
Thanks again, Diory.
No problem, guys. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no worries at all, man. And that's how we wrap up episode number 10 of the Big Potato Podcast. Yep. What a ride it's been. Tonight, a great journey to the outdoors. And that's how we wrap up tonight. As always, guys, thank you for joining us and enjoy the outdoors.
Entrepreneurship, it's all game. The Big Potato Podcast is yours to claim. From startups to scaling up, we cover it all, so don't mess up. Monday nights, don't miss the show with Kendell and Stuart. Your time to grow, listen up, take notes and learn. The Big Potato Podcast, next gen's turn.